Hi, I'm Benton Stokes.
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
And this is Cocktail Theology. Hey there.
Hi there.
So today we are enjoying Calabaza Borracha.
Drunk pumpkin?
Yes, the drunk pumpkin.
It's the drunk pumpkin, Charlie Brown? Is that
yes,
right? Okay.
Yes. We should have Vince Guaraldi's Great Pumpkin Waltz playing in the background. I know. It's very, very yummy.
Okay.
It's so it is reposado tequila.
Okay.
It is pumpkin spice Irish cream.
Oh, okay.
Right. And then it has some triple sec. It has a tiny bit of lemon juice to brighten it up, and then it has a dusting of cinnamon on top.
Okay. It's tasty, too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. This is really good. So much better than eggnog.
It is better than eggnog, but there's something about it that reminds me a little bit of eggnog.
I think it's the Irish cream aspect.
In a good way. Oh, yeah.
And the cinnamon.
Sure.
Because, eggnog has some of those things in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and eggnog is kind of a festive holiday beverage, like apparently Calabaza Borracha is also a festive holiday.
Well, everyone will be drinking it next Halloween.
Well, it's fun because we're entering into what Americans tend to call the holiday season.
We are.
Now, we have holidays all throughout the year.
Yes.
And if you are both American and belong to either an ethnic or religious tradition that has other holidays, you could have holidays pretty much all the time.
You really could.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I think we've gotten this all wrong being Jesus followers because it limits the holidays.
I guess it does.
Ours tend to overlap with federal holidays.
Yeah. Could we just be like the nosy neighbor that shows up to everybody's cookout?
I like it. I'm sorry, I need to take today off.
We could just drop in on this bat mitzvah. We can drop in on this.
It's Samhain. So I thought we would actually today talk about holidays.
Okay.
Since we're headed into this holiday season.
Yes.
And the difference or lack of difference or whatever between holidays and holy days.
Yes, I like that.
So it strikes me every single year when we go into the American holiday season that a number of our holidays around this time are either specifically Christian or have Christian tradition wound up in them or are some ancient thing that's been sort of manipulated to be something else.
Right.
It might be interesting to talk about some of these and just figure out whether we actually consider them holy days or if holiday is just a bastardization of holy day and they really don't have anything to do with one another.
Oh, that's an interesting question to pose.
Why, thank you. Yeah. So, okay, we're going into the holiday season, and the holiday season, I think, where would you start it? Like, what do you think kicks off the holiday season?
Well, I mean, I used to just consider the holiday season to be like Christmas and New Year's.
Okay.
But certainly in my lifetime, it has expanded. Okay. So Halloween used to be an occasion where little kids got dressed up and went trick-or-treating. Mm-hmm. There were haunted houses around that you could go through, and people would put a jack-o'-lantern on their porch. Okay. It's grown into much, much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
I think I heard this statistic somewhere. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Listeners, you can correct me too. But that Halloween is second to Christmas in terms of what people spend on house decorations, decor, etc.
Oh, it makes sense.
So there's not another holiday other than Christmas that gets as much attention in many people's homes as Halloween. Okay. You start seeing Halloween decorations, I guess, in stores probably in August. Okay. And then Christmas happens at Halloween now. Mm-hmm. And then Thanksgiving's kind of in the middle. Right? Right. And Thanksgiving isn't a big money-making holiday, so retailers don't really pay much attention to it. Okay. So I kind of feel like holiday season now kind of starts with Halloween and goes all the way through the end of the year. Okay. Even though I don't personally experience it that way.
All right, that makes sense. So marking the holiday season by when the decorations start really kicking in. Because you're right, it is just one long stream of decor from Halloween all the way through New Year, really.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so that's a way to think about the holiday season. I was thinking also about when people start going absent at businesses, right?
Oh, sure.
Right? So if you're scheduling people at a particular business, you start noticing that they're going absent more and more and more around Halloween.
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, both of those ideas of holiday have nothing to do with holy day.
True. Yeah.
They have to do with personal behaviors and economic realities.
Yeah.
Okay. But isn't it interesting that Halloween is attached to some holy days, and both Christian holy days, mainly because of Pope Gregory, but also non-Christian holy days.
That is interesting,
Isn't it? In another episode, we talked about how the year of the ancients revolved around harvest, planting and harvest.
Right.
That period of time when the harvest is over and winter is quickly coming upon one has been a time of celebration and remembrance throughout history in many parts of the world, because it's a clear shift, right? In the Celtic tradition or Celtic traditions, that particular split between autumn and winter is known as Samhain, which is spelled Samhain. Blame the Celts. I can't help you with why it's pronounced that way.
Okay.
That's one of those breaks. Now it's generally considered sort of Wiccan, which is a whole different issue. But the idea is that it comes out of Celtic nature connection stuff. So Druids, people like that.
Okay.
So Pope Gregory came along. I gotta give like all kinds of credit to the early Christian popes particularly, because they knew that if you were going to impose or encourage a new religion, it was much better to lay it on top of something that was already there. Okay? And we can go into that another time. So what Pope Gregory did was he named the day after the end of Samhain as the Feast of All Souls. So it was still a transition from autumn into winter, but he put on it this honoring of the dead aspect. And in Samhain, the part after Samhain is considered darkness, death. It's ruled by the god who cares about that stuff, right?
Okay.
So what Gregory was doing is kind of laying a Christian-esque thing on top of that in order to bring it into the culture. Okay. Well then, Halloween, which is All Hallows, so souls, so hallowed like holy, All Hallows Eve became the other holidays. So remember, everything feast and fasting are always connected, right?
Yes.
So it would be the feast before the All Souls fast. It's not a fast, but that's the idea. Okay. And then over time, it turned into whatever it is now. Right. Which is decidedly not a holy day. Right. Unless you're not celebrating Halloween. So the other thing that happens around this time, which I love, is the Day of the Dead. And it's in many Spanish-speaking countries, and now in some non-Spanish-speaking countries as well, because people went, that's a good idea, right? It actually is derived from an Aztec holiday, holy day. And the idea of the Day of the Dead is, and it goes anywhere from the end of October 31st all the way to November 2nd. The Day of the Dead ran parallel to this thing that Pope Gregory came up with. And they came to be parallel but not antithetical streams. Okay. So you could be Christian and celebrate Day of the Dead.
Interesting.
Right? The idea of Day of the Dead is in some ways more like Samhain, right? It's an acknowledging of this change of season, but that change of season for the Day of the Dead is also connected to the change between a living physical body and a dead physical body, right? The idea is that on those days, the dead and the living are closer. we've talked about this kind of idea before when we talk about thin places. Right? So God is closer in the thin place. This has a similar idea. Mm-hmm. So you, in Day of the Dead ritual, basically, you honor your dead, you celebrate them, you remember them, you dress up or enjoy skulls and skeletons and such, both as an honoring, but also as a way of sort of mocking death.
Oh, right. Okay. Uh-huh.
So it's really common to see like small skeletons set up as an orchestra or, something like that. Right. Like doing the things that they might have been doing in life, but,
Right.
So there's all of this Day of the Dead ritual around it. Mm-hmm. In most Christian viewpoints, there's nothing particularly religious about that, as long as you're not way into the spooky stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. But all those things are marking the seasonal change.
Yeah.
None of them do we consider a holy day.
Right.
Which I just find fascinating. I think it's fascinating that we call all of these things holiday, which just means holy day, and none of them is.
Wow. Yeah.
Including, I would say, Christmas.
Yeah.
For most people, including most Christians in the United States anyway.
Right. Which we can go into that
another
when
time.
When we get into Christmas, we'll talk about that some more. But yeah, and then like even Thanksgiving, while we treat it as, or some people treat it as a day to be grateful or to show gratitude, say one thing you're thankful for, go around the table, and that's lovely. And I enjoy marking Thanksgiving that way. But it is also not a holy day.
Right.
It's not religiously significant.
Right. It isn't religiously significant in the Christian calendar, nor is it religiously significant in the way that most of us choose to celebrate it.
Right.
So going back to your gratitude image, which I love too, but almost never, in fact, I have never experienced this. Maybe you have. If you're sitting around the Thanksgiving table and everyone is asked to say one thing they're grateful for or thankful for, they are not asked to say something like, God, thank you so much for the fact that I get to sit with my friends and family and enjoy this feast. Next, God, thank you so much, right? We don't acknowledge God in those Thanksgivings.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
We acknowledge kind of this general goodness.
Right.
What's that about? So is it a holiday? Is it a holy day?
It's a fine question.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm not sure we have very many actual holy days in this country. I think if anything is considered a holy day, it's pretty close. Well, I wouldn't even say that anymore. I started to tell a lie. Can you think of any things that, like as a culture, or as many cultures, because we are many cultures, but the dominant culture, which is kind of, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but like revivalist Protestant, not like historical Protestant. Anyway, can you think of anything that we tend to celebrate as a holy day?
No.
Not much.
No. I mean, there are days that, depending on your faith tradition, that could be marked as holy days. There are days that we acknowledge as holy days.
Definitely.
But as a culture, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Some people would say Christmas, but I don't really believe that we as a culture acknowledge Christmas as a holy day.
One of the things that struck me after I became a pastor and I was living in places that weren't here was how many large churches had no worship services on Christmas or Christmas Eve. They had them 2 weeks earlier because people would be out of town.
Right.
That means it's not a holy day.
Right. Because you're not prioritizing that or treating it as if it's holy.
That's right. And so in the historical church, as you know, if it's a holy day, you honor it, celebrate it, whether anyone's there or not.
Right.
Because it's still a holy day.
Right.
So I would say Christmas is, for most people, even most people who call themselves Jesus followers or Christians, it's not really a holy day.
No, I don't think so either.
Anything else? Baptisms and weddings used to be thought of as holy days. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that's true so much anymore either. I mean, in individual places they are. Don't get me wrong. Right. It's not like individuals never see it that way.
Right. Yeah, we don't really culturally pay much attention to rites like that anymore, I don't think. I mean, weddings are an excuse to throw a big party.
Yes, they are.
Baptisms aren't a community event or a cultural event anymore. They're treated more like a personal or a family event.
Yes.
In the tradition that I grew up in, we didn't really do godparents, and so baptisms for a baby it was more like a dedicating of the parents to God to raise this child in a certain way.
Right.
And then once a person was to a certain age, then they could make the decision to be baptized themselves, right?
Right.
But it wasn't part of a particular, it's not like something you had to do or had to do at a certain time.
Right.
If there was a baby dedication or a christening, then it was a family event. And the church might be asked, will you support this family as these parents raise this child? And we would say we will. But that was really the closest thing to it. I don't think those events are marked culturally, maybe the way they once were. But I have a hard time thinking of anything that we as a culture really get behind. Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe the part of the question that we're getting at is, well, what counts as holy? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's a topic for a different episode, but have we just completely lost our sense of holiness, of set apartness, set asideness, awe, those things? I was thinking my daughter is turning 16 soon. And I was thinking about when I got my driver's license and when I registered to vote. Mm-hmm. I felt at that point like registering to vote was a holy day. It felt imbued with a specialness.
Right.
That wasn't just about me.
Right.
It was about something much bigger.
Right.
Right. I'm not sure we have much of that anymore as a culture or even as a set of faith traditions.
Yeah, I'm not sure we do either. I think within our faith traditions, there are days that we mark. And if you take your faith tradition seriously, then you mark those days as well. If you are a devoted Catholic, you go and receive ashes on Ash Wednesday.
Right.
If you are a devoted Jesus follower, then you walk through Holy Week and experience what we can experience of what Jesus experienced. Mm-hmm. I know that's a weird way to say that. Mm-hmm. But obviously we can't walk with Jesus through all of that. Right. But we can remember.
Exactly.
And we can feel what it is to remember. And so those are holy days because we set aside the time and we're intentional.
Yes. Yes.
About how we spend the time.
Yes.
We don't just take a day off from work.
And go do something.
And go to the beach. We actually take the time and we're very intentional about how we spend the time.
Right.
But as a society, even if you take faith out of it, I mean, there's nothing that we all really stop and do. Now, there have been monumental things. Neil Armstrong stepping on the moon, that was a monumental thing and that people stopped and they noticed and they paid attention to. There have been other big cultural events. The Super Bowl probably gets people to to sit down and pay attention to something. Mm-hmm. But we don't culturally really, in the United States, I think there are other places in the world where they do. We don't really get behind anything like that that I can think of.
For the first decade or so after 9/11, 9/11 had a sense of holiness because throughout the country you would find people focused on remembering the loss and the grief and the shock and all those things. So it had that sense of holiness, I think.
Right, I think so too.
So maybe, so one of the things that points to for me is no matter what people say, not only are we not a Christian country, and not only are we not founded on Christianity, because then those things would have actually held up.
Yes.
And we would be enforcing them that way.
Right.
But But I think as Americans, we may not really have a sense of holiness at all anymore, if we ever did.
If we ever did. I would agree with that.
Now, we have personal moments of holiness, as you pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that we would together remember our dead in a particular way, or mark a season changing in a particular way, and that would be something that bound us together, that required a moment of awe or a moment of remembrance. That idea, Black Friday maybe?
Right.
Where people go shopping and people wait for that, and it's very exciting, and there's this sense of anticipation.
Yeah.
Maybe part of what we need to do as people who are seeking out God, and particularly seeking out God in the way of Jesus, is really make sure that we have some holy days as well as some holidays as we go into the various holiday seasons.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Listeners, what do you think? Are there days that you experience as holy days? We would love to hear from you. We are at cocktailtheology.com. We also love to get ideas for episodes like this one and ideas for cocktails too.
Yes.
We do have a few more episodes for this season, and we would love your ideas, particularly as we go into the season we call Advent in our church calendar that you may understand as the holidays. That's okay too, but we love to hear from you. Well, I'm going to get back to my drunk pumpkin.
To your drunk, but I can't even say
Easy
it.
for you to say.
Okay. Okay, it was easier in Spanish. All right. I'm going to go back to that too.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.